African Tales by Bibe. Part 4. The man was looking at her in a peculiar manner. "Mathematics," he said, snapping his fingers. "Huh?" Olanma gazed at him like he had gone nuts. "Good heavens, you've grown even more beautiful," he beamed, his handsome face lighting up completely. The driver and the receptionist looked at each other, puzzled. Olanma looked at the man doubtfully. "Since you have forgiven me, I'll go now," she said hurriedly, turning away. "Years ago, I splashed water on you along Uwani Road. You said you had mathematics that morning," he said, smiling. Olanma froze. "Oh, that's him. I was wondering where I saw this face. Oh my God, what's happening?" She turned to him and smiled in recognition. "What a small world," she said, taking a deep breath. "Yes, a very small world. How are you? How have you been? It's been 6 years?" "8 years," she supplied. He took a step towards her. "Damien, Elizabeth, you can leave us now." He glanced at the two who were enjoying the drama before them. "Yes, sir," Damien, the driver said, and walked away, smiling mischievously. Elizabeth went back to her desk. "Come, come, let's talk in my office." "I can't believe this," the man said, looking at her with keen interest and amazement. "Actually, I'm in a hurry." "Maybe next time," Olanma said, trying to escape. He shook his head definitely. "No, no, no, you're not running away this time. I never forgot you. This time we'll talk. Come." He moved his head towards his office. Olanma followed him, her heart beginning to pound. "What kind of coin kindink is this?" she thought, biting her lower lip. The man opened the door for her, smiling as he ushered her into his office. His office was minimalistic but posh. He closed the door. They stared at each other for what seemed like an eternity. "What's your name?" he asked. "Olanma." She looked away from his eyes, feeling shy all of a sudden. "Surname?" "Chima. Olanma Chima." "Good, good." He folded his arms, watching her with a slight smile tugging his lips. "I'm Frederick Ezici," he told her. Olanma nodded with a smile, looking away again. She could feel her apples tightening and her heart still pounding. She was scared of her reaction to the man. She could remember that day. Suddenly she laughed, trying to break off the feelings welling up in her. She had not even felt that instant reaction with Olisemeka. What was it about this man? "Why are you laughing?" He was curious, still smiling. "I remembered how angry I was with you on that day," she said, meeting his eyes briefly. "Very angry. And you refused to accept my help. You were just shouting, 'KK! KK!'" Olanma laughed further and shrugged. "I couldn't help it." "Let me have your number," he said, getting his phone from his desk. "What for?" she blurted. "To know you better. I'm not letting you go this time," he said, their eyes locking. "There's nothing much to know," she said, looking away. "Just give me your number," he said quietly. Olanma took his phone and added her number to his contacts. She handed it back to him, carefully avoiding her hand from touching his. She was already melting at the sight of him. This scared her. He dialed her number and her phone rang in her purse. "It's ringing," she noted, and pulled out her phone from her purse. "I'll save your number. I have to go now." "Okay, okay. I'll call you at night. By the way, how's your car? Let me take a look at it." Olanma nodded without a word. She walked out of his office, feeling his eyes on her. She was glad he was seeing her when she had stabilized. When Frederick saw her car, he said he wouldn't allow her to drive off in a damaged car. He volunteered to drive her to her destination, but Olanma refused. "It's nothing really. I'll just send a package to an office. Then I'll head over to my mechanic. I should contribute to the repair of your car," she told him with an apologetic smile. He laughed softly. "Don't worry about it. Talk with you later." Olanma nodded and entered her car. She put on the seat belt and looked at him. "Drive carefully," he told her. She smiled and nodded. She started her car and drove off. Frederick smiled and headed back to the office. When Olanma eventually arrived home after posting her mushroom package, she was exhausted. But within her heart, a new joy was welling up. Was it because of Frederick? Why did she meet him again? Was it fate? Oh, Olanma groaned as she began to prepare for a bath. Do I believe in that? I don't know. That night, Frederick called Olanma and they chatted amiably for about 10 minutes. He invited her on a date the next day, but she was reluctant. She asked for them to chat for a while. He agreed. Meanwhile, Frederick, the second son and last child of the billionaire, Chief Uzoigwe Izichi, who was in the oil and gas sector, was glad to have met Olanma again. Indeed, he had often remembered her all these years. He had been intrigued by her. Frederick had paved a way for himself and was content with his travel agency business, which was really thriving. While he was a stakeholder in his father's company, he preferred running a fresh enterprise. His elder brother, Dozy, and sister Ene were representing the family business well in that direction. Frederick couldn't believe he was given the chance to meet Olanma again. Boy, how she had changed, but her face was still the same, he mused. She was more womanly now. The next day was Saturday. Frederick's mother paid him a visit. But she didn't come alone. A beautiful young woman came with her. The moment Frederick opened the door, he sighed within himself. His mother was at it again. "Mom, come in." He waved her inside. They came in, the young woman smiling. "Good afternoon," woman greeted Frederick sweetly. He smiled politely. "Good afternoon, welcome. Please sit down." He ushered her to the seat. "Hey, Fred, this is Ngozika, the daughter of Chief Kalechi, the owner of—" "Mom," he cut her short politely. "Come with me," he told her, nodding towards the kitchen. "We'll be right back," Frederick's mother told Ngozika, who was smiling hopefully. As soon as they entered the kitchen, Fred turned to his mother. "Mom, why are you still doing this? I thought we discussed this and you agreed to stop." "After I agreed, what happened? Have you brought home any wife?" She gazed at him pointedly. Frederick let out a deep breath and held her mom's arms gently. "Mom, look at me. It's not working. Just let me be. My elder brother is married with kids. My sister is married with kids. What more do you want? It's for you to marry too and start a family. That's what I want. Are you growing younger? Mom, what if I decide not to marry? Is it a crime?" Frederick's mother stared at him, shocked. Hey, who did this to you, Frederick?" Mom, allow me to make my choice, please. These girls you keep bringing to me, you're giving them false hopes and that's not good for them. Stop it. Find a way and discharge her," he said firmly. "I'm going out." "At least stay and chat small with her," she pleaded. "No, Mom, that would further give her false hopes." "I'm out," he told her. Frederick left his mother and went upstairs. Few minutes later, he left the house. His mother would drive him crazy one of these days. Though he didn't plan to go to the office that afternoon, he had to. He got busy with work. As he was going through some documents on his desk, his phone beeped and he checked the incoming message. "How are you doing?" The message was from Olanma. He smiled as he responded, "I'm fine, and you?" They chatted for a few minutes, then he called her. "Ola, I know you like me. Come, let's eat out tomorrow evening," he told her, chuckling. "Who told you I liked you?" she asked, amused. "I know you do. Come on, don't dilly-dally." Olanma was quiet for a short time, then she agreed to have a date with him the next day. Frederick felt good. Olanma was quite excited at the idea of seeing Frederick again. God, I'm feeling like I've always known him. She closed her eyes and told herself to slow down. What Olisemeka did to her wasn't easy to forget. Would she really get a man that would truly love her? The next day being Sunday, Olanma prepared for her date. She wore a simple black gown that highlighted her figure and held her natural hair together in a ponytail. She was beautiful. When she arrived at the restaurant, Frederick was already there, waiting. When he saw her, he broke into a smile. What a beauty, he told her as she arrived at their table. He pulled out a seat for her. Thank you, she smiled as she sat down. And you are very handsome. How do you escape from women? She teased lightly. He laughed softly. Then he asked her what she would like to have. Order for me, she told him. Frederick placed their order and turned to her, smiling. Finally, you're here. I am very curious to know more about you. Olanma smiled. Soon after, their meals and drinks arrived. Over their meals, they talked and shared experiences. They laughed. Olanma didn't dwell on her hard times growing up. That would be when they had gotten closer. Their date went so well that by the end of it, Frederick pulled Olanma into his arms and kissed her cheek lovingly. We'd make a good pair, don't you think? He asked. Olanma only stared at him. She had realized Frederick came from a wealthy family. She knew how some of those families react to someone from a background like hers. True, Frederick was sweet and kind, but how would his family react towards being with someone with no influential family background? What's the problem? He tilted up her chin. Olanma only shook her head and smiled. I really enjoyed my evening. Thank you. I should be thanking you, he returned. Since her car was still being repaired, she had arrived with an Uber. Frederick offered to take her home, and she agreed. Olanma and Frederick became closer with each passing day. They enjoyed each other's company a lot. Olanma opened up to him and told her about her struggles growing up under her Aunt Deborah and how Jessica and her parents helped her. Frederick held her hands, kissing her knuckles at intervals as she spoke. At the end, he told her that he was proud of who she had become and that he would support her all the way from then on. On the weekends, Frederick spent almost all his time at her place. She would cook him any food he had mentioned in their discussion as being among his favorites. One Saturday afternoon, Olanma cooked white soup for him. Frederick confessed he had not eaten that soup before. Then you're about to taste one of the best soups of Abaya people, she told him, laughing. When Frederick tasted the soup, he smiled deeply, nodding his head. Where did you learn to cook like this? Well, I started cooking early at my aunt's house, but I learned to cook this particular soup online. The agusi balls are the thing for me, she said, licking her fingers. Yeah, he agreed. It's delicious, very delicious. They spent the rest of the evening playing chess. In fact, Frederick was the one teaching Olanma chess because before now she never played it. She was excited about it, and that gave Frederick joy. Another weekend, Olanma told him to come with her to one of the orphanages, where she donated food items every month and gave some scholarship to some of the kids. Frederick was glad to go with her. They had a good time staying with some of the kids, talking to them and encouraging them to keep faith and work with determination. Frederick gave Olanma some money in an envelope to add to what she had for the orphanage. She kissed his cheek with affection and thanked him. The orphanage management promised to use the money for the good of the institution. When they returned to Olanma's house, Frederick was reluctant to go home. He wanted to stay with her, but he had to leave around 6 p.m. because both of them had agreed not to sleep in the other's house. After a month, Frederick took Olanma to his family house. He noticed she was somewhat apprehensive. As he parked his Prado Jeep in front of his father's duplex, Frederick turned to Olanma with concerned eyes. He took her palms, kissing them softly. Why are you scared? Olanma looked at him and smiled with trembling lips. She took a deep breath and let it out slowly. They would want to know my family background. Her voice was faint. What's wrong with your family background? You were orphaned. You fought for yourself and triumphed. Look, he said gently, I'm super proud of you. My mom can be class-conscious, but not my dad. Be strong. Don't let anything or anyone intimidate you. She looked deeply into his eyes and felt a new strength come up within her. She saw his love for her in his eyes. Olanma nodded and smiled. "Thank you," she said softly. "Come on, let's get out." Taking her hand firmly, Frederick led Olanma into the house. The living room was empty. Olanma looked around the lavish house and looked at Frederick, her hand tightened around his. "Sit," he told her. Olanma sat down and told herself to calm down. Frederick sat beside her while a servant went to inform his parents about their arrival. 5 minutes later, Frederick's parents came into the living room. His father was good-looking and dark in complexion. In fact, Frederick favored his dad, only he was fair like his mother. Frederick's mother was beautiful and dressed in a flowing floral gown. "Good afternoon, Mom, Dad," Frederick greeted as he got to his feet. "Good day, sir. Good day, Ma," Olanma greeted, getting to her feet as well. She smiled calmly. "Oh, Fred, you're welcome." "Welcome, my daughter," Frederick's father smiled. He was a man in his early 70s and looked kind. Frederick's mother smiled at them, her eyes assessing Olanma in one swoop. "Welcome, son," she said to Frederick, and looked at Olanma with a smile. "You're welcome." "Thank you, Ma," Olanma said, looking at Frederick. "Dad, Mom, this is Olanma I told you about. She's my girlfriend, and she's very dear to me. Olanma, my beautiful parents." He looked at Olanma with smiles. Olanma nodded. Sit down," his father ushered them. They all sat down. "We're happy to receive you, Olanma. From the way Fred is smiling, I can see he's happy with you," Frederick's father said. "Thank you, sir. It's my pleasure meeting you and Ma." "Who are your parents?" Frederick's mother asked. There was a brief silence before Olanma said, "I lost my parents as a child, Ma. I grew up with my aunt and her family." "Oh, sorry about that," Frederick's father said. Olanma nodded. "Sorry about your loss," Frederick's mother said. "Thank you, Ma," Olanma replied. "So where are your guardians now? They stay in Enugu, too?" "Yes," Olanma said, glancing at Frederick. "Hopefully you'll invite them over too, Fred. Let's familiarize," his mother added. Frederick cleared his throat and changed the subject. He sensed Olanma's discomfort. Frederick's mother wanted to know what Olanma did for a living, and the latter was willing to tell her about her affiliate marketing job. The rest of the day went well. At last, Frederick and Olanma took their leave. When they left, Frederick's mother turned to her husband. "Why did the girl freeze when I told Fred to invite her guardians?" Frederick's father sighed. "You're being too forward, love. Allow the kids to flow at their own pace. Maybe she's not on good terms with them, who knows? I'll find out. As I said, allow them to flow at their own pace," her husband maintained. Olanma and Frederick returned to Frederick's house. Olanma looked relieved that the first meeting with his family was over. Though she didn't like the idea of inviting her aunt and her husband to Frederick's family, she wouldn't dwell on it. "We're not inviting your aunt and her husband," Frederick told her as they walked into the living room. He dropped his car remote on the center table. "I agree with you. I don't trust them," Olanma agreed. Then she smiled. "It wasn't as tough as I imagined." "I told you not to worry. My mom can ruffle your feathers once in a while, but that's all." Olanma sat on his lap, hugging him warmly. You smell good," she inhaled. Frederick laughed, wrapping his arms around her. A week later, Olanma received a call from a strange number. She answered the call, wondering who the caller was. The person identified herself as Helen, her cousin. Olanma was surprised but didn't show any emotion. "Why are you calling me?" she asked coolly. "Please, Ola. My mum is down. She's in the hospital," Helen explained with a trembling voice. "What happened to her?" "She's been battling with breast cancer," Helen explained emotionally. "Are you serious?" "Ah. Yes, please, she needs to undergo serious treatment and the money involved is enormous," she explained. "What about Easy?" Olanma asked. We've not heard from Easy for over 1 year now since he went to Malaysia. Ah, Olanma was shocked. Over 1 year. Let it be that Easy has not entered into trouble with the law over there, she thought. Well, what do you want me to do now? Olanma asked, trying not to be emotionally involved. Just help us with part of the money so the treatment can continue, Helen pleaded. What of Uncle Amadi? Dad is out of work at the moment and has exhausted his means. Please, Olanma, please. I know we treated you badly. Please forgive us and help us, Helen pleaded. I'll think of what to do. Where's the hospital? Helen gave her directions to the hospital. When the call ended, Olanma took a deep breath. It's been a long time since she heard anything about her aunt and her family. For over 6 years, she had not set eyes on any of them, though they lived in the same city. But she had heard Uncle Amadi later impregnated a house girl who came later. She didn't get further details, and she wasn't really interested. Later, she told Frederick about her aunt's condition. He told her he would support whatever her decision might be. However, he advised her not to get fully involved in their problems. Olanma decided to visit her aunt at the hospital. Although she had maltreated her, she had taken her in as an orphan. If Aunt Deborah hadn't taken her to her house, her condition as a child would have been worse. But Olanma promised herself not to carry their matter on her head. The sight of her Aunt Deborah on the hospital bed shocked her. Aunt Deborah had emaciated terribly, and she wondered if she would make it. When Deborah saw her, tears filled her eyes and overflowed. "Hola, Olanma," Deborah called weakly. "Auntie," Olanma replied, her eyes filling with tears too. "You came?" Deborah's voice was weak. "Yes, Auntie, don't worry, I'll do my best so you get the best treatment," Olanma told her. Ola, wait," she told her. Olanma watched her sadly. Forgive me, please, forgive me. I know we treated you badly, but forgive. I'm sorry," Deborah pleaded, with tears in her eyes. Olanma held her hand, nodding. "Don't stress yourself. I've forgiven you. Get well first," she told her, squeezing her aunt's hand. Helen was there too, wiping her eyes. She thanked Olanma for agreeing to help her mother. Helen took her to the different departments of the hospital for Olanma to start the payment process for her mother's surgery and treatment. Indeed, Olanma paid the huge money required to treat her aunt, but she didn't go back to the hospital again. She only communicated with Helen on the phone. Olanma took Frederick to visit Jessica's parents. They brought with them big tubers of yam, a bag of rice, cartons of tinned tomatoes, a 10-liter gallon of soya oil, and provisions. Jessica's parents were happy and overwhelmed at the gifts. They welcomed Frederick with open arms and told him Olanma was a girl like their daughter and was a good girl. Frederick smiled and thanked them for standing by Olanma all through her difficult years. Jessica's mother served them a delicious meal of vegetable soup and fufu. 3 months later, Frederick proposed to Olanma, and she gladly accepted. "I love you so much. I want to spend the rest of my life with you," Frederick told her huskily. Olanma beamed with smiles, holding his face in her palms. "I love you always. I'm thankful to God that you're my man," she told him with love-filled eyes. During Frederick's parents' 44 years marriage anniversary, Olanma participated fully in running errands like going to the market to buy foodstuff and helping in arranging things. Frederick's family were impressed by her humility. Even Frederick's mother had to give it to her that she was a good woman. Frederick's sister, Nay, welcomed Olanma with warmth. Olanma and Frederick's traditional wedding went very smoothly. Although they didn't make it a high society wedding, their close friends and associates graced the occasion. Jessica and her husband came with full support. Jessica's parents were also present. The traditional ceremony was conducted, and Olanma and Frederick were declared husband and wife. She danced happily with her husband while guests both from Olanma's village and from the city rejoiced with them. Success has a lot of friends. Deborah couldn't make it because she was recovering from her surgery and treatment. Her husband couldn't come as well. But Helen attended, witnessing the rise of the little girl her mother had maltreated as a child. She vowed to be a better person. The white wedding was done a week later. Jessica was her chief bridesmaid. No other person would have taken that position. Olanma couldn't help but shed tears of joy as she watched Frederick waiting for her at the altar. When she arrived at the altar, both of them gazed at each other with profound love. They exchanged their vows happily. After kissing his bride, they were greeted by a warm applause by the guests. The reception went smoothly with Frederick's few friends and associates, happy to share in his joy. His mother had her own teams of friends and women's groups in attendance. Frederick's father's friends and associates were also present. That night, Frederick and Olanma consummated their love, and it was bliss. Olanma promised to take good care of him. Frederick told her he would always protect her to the best of his strength. Olanma and Frederick started their journey as man and wife, holding each other's hand, knowing there will be challenges, but their love would conquer. Yes, life could throw you different stones, but with perseverance, those stones would become gems. Thank you very much for watching till the end. I hope you had a great time. Please press the like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And if you would like to know how this rich man got treated by his wife and family after he had an accident, please stay tuned on this channel. A Rich Man Down is coming up soon.